most gracious, complimentary, and warm welcome to my wife and I. It's a privilege and honor that I will forever cherish. I remember very well walking this hallowed and blessed piece of land many times during its early construction with my father and other pioneers who strove so passionately under severe obstacles to establish this faculty of engineering. Today, standing here and being among you, I feel extremely emotional and sentimental. Please forgive me if I should ramble on incoherently. Thank you. I particularly thank Dr. Uge for giving me this honor of standing here before you to say a few words on my father. My father would be delighted that I've been able to sneak in through the back door and at long last rub shoulders and be part of this elite engineering fraternity in this country, even for a brief moment. To the engineers in this esteemed learned institution, I say, you will be playing a key role in shaping our world in the future and beyond. Engineers are architects of progress, the innovators who push the boundaries of what is possible, and the visionaries who transform ideas into reality. As we stand at the beginning of a new era of technological advancements and societal changes, engineers are at the cutting edge, leading the way in shaping the future of our world. In the coming decades, engineers will be instrumental in addressing some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity, from climate change and sustainable energy solutions to advancements in healthcare and transportation. With their expertise, creativity, and problem-solving skills, engineers are at the forefront of developing innovative solutions that will shape the way we live, work, and interact with each other. As we look to the future, it is clear that engineers have a critical role to play in building a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous world for all. By harnessing the power of technology, embracing creativity and collaboration, and upholding the highest standards of ethics and integrity, engineers have the opportunity to make a lasting impact on society. So, to all the engineers out there, I urge you to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, to push the boundaries of what is possible, and to lead with passion, purpose, and integrity. The future is in your hands, and it's up to you to shape a world that is brighter, more innovative, and more sustainable. Turning to my father, for the benefit of those who never met him, it is easy to talk about him, for he was a very simple man, uncomplicated in the way he lived his life. I feel the best way to portray some of the qualities by relating a few relevant anecdotes. My father had one great disappointment in his life. It was the pain and emotional trauma that followed when he left his beloved faculty of engineering and his beloved students to become Vice Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya. He refused to accept the post on many occasions, and one Sunday morning there was a knock on the front door of his bungalow at Peradeniya that changed his life thereafter to one of much sadness. Before I tell you why, let me relate a few pertinent stories with my father. In his youth, my father was an undergrad scholar at Cambridge University and traveling by train from Cambridge to London with three of his closest university friends, all from Ceylon, including one, Dudley Senanayake. We'll refer to him as Dudley, who was later to become Prime Minister of Ceylon. My dad was in charge of the tickets. During the course of the journey, Dad saw the ticket inspector coming down the aisle. The mischievous, playful side of my dad came into being. Taking the tickets out of his pocket, he noticed that Dudley's ticket was missing. It was a series of university offence to be caught without a train ticket. A high-powered consultation occurred. It was unanimously decided that Dudley had to be in. The only option available was to hide him under the two-person seat, bench seat. Not an easy assignment, as Dudley, even at that age, was a rather rotund and chubby guy. They managed to squeeze him as much as possible under the seat, and what protruded was basically covered by the long trousers of the two-seated pants. The inspector arrived and then handed him the tickets. There appeared a very puzzled look on the inspector's face before he said, "Sir, you have given me 4 tickets, but there are only 3 of them." To which my father replied, "That's correct. Our missing friend is unable to sit on these hard beds. So he prefers to lie down and go to sleep." The 2 pals then stood up, and there was Dudley, all curled up like a baby in a cot, but highly embarrassed and even more highly furious. Some 2 weeks later, Dudley was stopped by the police while cycling without lights at night on the streets of Cambridge. They asked him, "What is your name, sir?" Without blinking an eye, Dudley said, "My name is E.O.E. Pereira from Downing College." The next day, 2 policemen appeared at my dad's room and issued a fine of substantial amount. The above incidents, and among many, all done without any malice and in all good faith and youthful humor, served as a formidable foundation for an intimate, lifelong friendship. Back to the knock on the front door, it was the Prime Minister of Ceylon, the Honorable Dudley Senanayake, who had come unannounced, plead his friend of old, my father, to accept the post of Vice Chancellor for the sake of the country. My father finally, under much persuasion from the Prime Minister, made a decision that he regretted and haunted him for the rest of his life. Because the all-consuming passion of my father's life was, of course, teaching, not administration. He relished so much in the dynamics of teaching, that magical chemistry of interaction between his beloved students and himself. He was not a one-eyed, single-focused teacher, but an educator in the broad sense. He did not attempt to impose his ideas on others, but valued and without prejudice assessed others' point of view. He never humiliated anyone due to their ignorance on an issue. For him, therefore, teaching was a two-way process, to impart knowledge and to acquire knowledge. I would not be standing here today, I think you already referred to this, if the consideration of financial wealth was of any importance to my father. During the early stages of the emerging new faculty of engineering, the newly elected Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, visited Ceylon to study the highly successful socio-economic model in operation and visited the new University of Ceylon. He also visited the Faculty of Engineering being built and was so impressed that he took my father aside and offered him an exceptional lucrative financial package to come over to Singapore and do the same. In a most polite and humble manner, my father declined the generous offer of a pot of gold, stating that he still had unfinished business at the Faculty of Engineering. My father always believed that his wealth was not in the accumulation of financial assets, but investment in his students. There was another instance where a blind student girl in one of the halls of residence at Peradeniya became unfortunately pregnant by her boyfriend, also a student, and also a pastor. The warden of the hall immediately insisted on removing her from the hall and sending her in disgrace back to the village. On hearing of this terrible plight of this young rural student, my father and my mother immediately drove up to the hall of residence and met the warden and ascertained the facts of the case. As a result, this unfortunate girl was invited immediately to come with them to stay at the Vice Chancellor's lodge with my parents until a mutually appropriate time arrived to leave. This far-reaching humanitarian act by my parents probably saved the lives of two youngsters and set them on a proper course in life, including a happy marriage. The last few years of my father's life was unpleasant in many ways, particularly having to cope with much continuous physical pain. He underwent a hip operation which was a total failure, resulting in a wound that never healed and confining him to a wheelchair. Financially, his only source of income was a meager pension which barely sustained his family's basic needs. On hearing of my father's plight, the President of the Honorable Jawad sent his personal assistant to visit my father. My father was in his wheelchair in the front veranda with his beloved pipe in his mouth. The personal assistant handed my father an envelope. He opened it, looked at what was inside, and not showing any emotion at all, closed the envelope and returned it to the personal assistant. The President had sent my father a most generous check for rupees 1 million, which was an incredibly substantial amount at that time. My father said, "Please convey to the President my sincere thanks for his generosity that I hugely value and appreciate." But I'm afraid that I'm unable to accept, as I have not earned it. Of course, and understandably, when my mother later found out, she was furious. The two great loves of my father's life were his family and his beloved Faculty of Engineering, and not necessarily in that order. As a father, he provided us with a home full of caring, love, and encouragement. And all time, in spite of us, his three sons beating him down badly in not one becoming an engineer. I in particular was an undisciplined student focusing on sport. Many years after my father's passing away, I met Professor Mahalingam when I visited the faculty. He came up to me and said, "You know, Lorenz, you thought that you were fooling your father pretending to study. Every time he passed you at your desk, the page was the same. And often the book was upside down. But that never pulled me up, or embarrassed, or humiliated me. That was the essence of his character. The bad habit was his pipe, which was literally glued to his mouth and became an unmistakable additional feature sculptured on his face. Finally, and most importantly, what was his single most outstanding legacy? Some might say it was his contribution to establishing the faculty of engineering. Also, it may be said it was his overall contribution to education in Sri Lanka. Others might say it was his noble human attributes of love, caring, and kindness, or his total disinterest in seeking personal recognition and wealth. To me, it is none of the above. I have thought about this aspect of my father's life a great deal, mainly in search of a lasting lifetime to guide my own future. I did finally find that life. My father's entire life, at every level and on every possible occasion, was dedicated solely to adding values to lives of others. I leave you with a blessing from my father.